O'Callaghan is with us for this evening's Meaningful Metrics. Good evening, Will.
Evening, Nathan. How are you getting on?
Very well. So Meaningful Metrics on OTB SPORTS in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. We are looking at the Hurling Provincial Finals and the meaningful metrics behind them. And Munster is something of a historic occasion for a relatively small province where, Clare and Limerick have been successful and have had periods of success. It's a hell of a long time since they've actually met in a Munster final.
Yeah, it is, Nathan. I think Clare fans will probably be hoping it's a good omen, because 1995 was the last meeting between these two neighbours in the final as we get ready for Semple Stadium this coming Sunday. And when Clare beat Limerick that year in 1995, they went on a run all the way to an All-Ireland success, which bridged a long gap at the time as well. 81 years they had been waiting to lift the Liam McCarthy at the time. It's been 24 years, the same time it took Derry to win an Ulster football title last weekend, since Clare were last crowned Munster champions. That was against Waterford back in 1998. So again, maybe Clare supporters would be hoping that it's written in the stars for this weekend. But Limerick, when it comes to metrics, Nathan, they're looking to go where no Limerick team has gone since the mid-1930s, and that's to win 4 Munster titles on the spin. It's been incredibly difficult to defend this province in recent years, but Limerick, with their All-Ireland titles in recent years too, are on the run potentially to win 4. They would match that Limerick team of the mid-30s, and they would become the first team in Munster since the Cork sides of the late 70s and the mid-1980s, who both did 5 in a row, if Limerick could lift the Mick Mackey, the new cup, which is going to be on offer this weekend. And they'll be hoping as well for Limerick that they'll be lifting a cup which is named after one of their legends.
Hard to believe that Clare are chasing just a 7th Munster title, a first since 1998. What's that, 24 years ago at this stage? They're well used to these long barren spells, though.
Yeah, they love gaps. So previously they had 68 years, 25 years, 18 years, and now if they were to lose this weekend, it would run into a 25th year again. So that's maybe why it's so special when Clare win Munster titles, because generally they leave a little bit of a gap along the way in those 6 that they've won so far, Nathan. For Limerick, it's a chance to win a 23rd title. And again, you look back to their great team of the 70s, they had such a long wait to lift the Liam McCarthy. They really are living through a golden period at the moment with the league success, Munster successes in recent seasons, and their All-Ireland titles as well. So this is a chance for the golden Limerick generation to potentially go 4 in a row, or it will be a case of this Clare team breaking the streak. And it's a very hard game to call, because the teams were very well matched when they met in Ennis a few weeks ago in the round robin section. I'm sure some will feel that Cian Lynch missing is a big help for Clare potentially. Clare have got the good feeling coming off the back of topping the round robin, which not many, I think, outside of Clare would have thought would happen. I think most of us thought that Limerick, despite their struggles in the league, were still going to be the top team in Munster. I think midway through the championship, most people thought that Limerick were going to top it as well. But Clare have been ruthlessly efficient, and they've proven so far that they're more than just Tony Kelly. They've added a really good supporting cast around them, with players coming back in this season like Peter Duggan, like Shane O'Donnell, who was so badly missed last year. And a Clare side who, didn't have the best of time over the last 3 or 4 seasons. Were knocked out in the round robin in 2019, got to an All-Ireland quarter-final in the qualifiers in the years since. Now look like they're maybe ready for an assault, not just on the Mick Mackey this weekend, but potentially the banner could have a real go at the All-Ireland title come the middle of July as well.
Saturday night, Leinster Hurling final, Galway against Kilkenny. We're all guilty of comparing Kilkenny to the great side of the mid part of the start of the century. Is that when it was? Yes, it was. But they're going for 3 in a row in Leinster.
Yeah, it's insane success, isn't it? We were talking about the Kilkenny metrics a few weeks ago when you were away, and we had Arthur and angry producer Mick reeling off the success that Kilkenny had against all the teams in Leinster before Galway came into the championship in 2008. Under Brian Cody, since he took over in the winter of 98 and into the season in 99, he has won 17 Leinster senior hurling titles, including an absolute stranglehold in the noughties when they won 9 during that decade, where they almost won 5 All-Ireland titles in a row. They won 4 and got denied by Tipperary on the 5th. But this would be a 74th overall, which just kind of shows the dominance that Kilkenny have. There is no other provincial championship around that has such dominance as the Kilkenny hurlers have. As you said, they're going for 3 in a row. Probably shouldn't have won the final 2 years ago if it wasn't for a little bit of Richie Hogan magic coming off the bench, juggling the ball and putting the ball into the net into a remarkable comeback in an empty Croke Park. Follow that up against the Dublin side, who were heavily hit by COVID-19 last year. But still, this Kilkenny team seemed to find a way to win, albeit they're going in as underdogs against Galway this weekend, because Kilkenny didn't look good last time out against Wexford. They played very well against Dublin, but the question mark is that performance going to be good enough to beat a Galway team who edged them by just a point when the sides met in Salt Hill? And, of course, you've got all the magic of the fact that Henry Shefflin, who played in 2 Leinster finals against Galway, was on a bench in the other, where Kilkenny won, I think, 3 of the 4 finals that he played as a player against Galway. So there's all that kind of interesting side story. There's handshakes, there's Cody versus Shefflin. But on the pitch itself, I think Galway have probably been a little bit more impressive in the provincial so far than Kilkenny, but never write Kilkenny off. As someone said to us on the Hurling Pod comments this week, Kilkenny aren't beaten until they're on the bus on the way home.
Is there a metric behind the handshake? Is there a science? What are we happy with the handshake?
There's a metric, Nathan, how many times the handshake is going to be mentioned in the coverage.
How many seconds does the handshake have to last for it to be an acceptable handshake?
It'll be all
anything more than 2 seconds is just awkward.
Yeah, exactly, as we saw on Salt Hill. And especially if you can slow that footage down even more, and 2 seconds become about 5, and you can freeze frame on Cody's face as he eventually, very reluctantly, seemed to walk away from that handshake. So it was very clear. Look, the metric for me this weekend, how many times we're going to see video of it or a mention of the handshake before throw-in, because there'll be about maybe half an hour, 35 minutes of coverage after the Joe McDonagh Cup final until throw-in in the Leinster final. Let's see how many times the handshake can be squeezed in between then and throw-in. That's the one to keep an eye on before the game. I mean, look, we obviously all overanalyzed what happened with the handshake, and we all had our own theories.
It deserved the analysis.
Yeah, was it important? Was it not important? The truth of it is that there's no way Brian Cody will want Henry Shefflin managing a Galway team against this Kilkenny to win a Leinster title. The O'Keefe still matters an awful lot to that Kilkenny team, and particularly to Brian Cody. And that's the really interesting thing going into this weekend, is what is Cody going to do before and after the game at Shefflin? Because he knows that every camera is going to be trained on him. Now, what happens between the lines in the 70 minutes will determine who lifts the cup. But I think we're all intrigued by the side sods to see what's going to happen between Shefflin and Cody. I think Cody might well try and get a handshake in before the match starts to try and put it to death. That's what Nicky Brennan was suggesting this week.
No chance.
Do you think there's still going to be an angry Brian Cody coming off the pitch?
I think the best scenario for the narrative here is that Galway beat Kilkenny again, and let's see how Cody reacts to that. Or if Kilkenny win, does he give Henry a sort of patronising pat in the back? Either way, it's going to be glorious.
It's going to be really tasty.
Yeah, well done, son. You tried your best, but not this time.
Indeed. We're saying on the Hurling Show this week as well that there's almost a quiz question that comes out of the last time that Galway won the Leinster Championship, because there was a replay back in 2018, you might recall, and Taylor Swift was on the week after the original game. So it ended up that there was a Leinster final played in Munster in Semple Stadium and was won by a iconic team in Galway in 2018. My 2 co-hosts on the Hurling Pod were both playing in the game. Skehill was in goal for Galway and Paul Murphy was playing right cornerback for Kilkenny. And winning Leinster has been a pretty good sign for Galway since they've joined the Leinster Championship back at the end of the noughties. Every year that they've won Leinster, 2012, 2017, 2018, they competed in that year's All-Ireland final. So I wonder, we're talking about it being maybe written in the stars with everything aligning with the years for Clare. If Galway were to win the Leinster Championship this coming Saturday night, will that mean that a Galway team who were so unimpressive last summer could be going to an All-Ireland final next month?
I assumed you were going to go down a Taylor Swift rabbit hole of puns and talk about the bad blood between Shefflin and Cody, and just ask if they're going to shake it off and get on with life. But you didn't want to go there, Will. I'm really upset.
I left it to you. I crossed.
Cody looks in Henry's eyes and says, "I knew you were trouble." I could be here all night with the Taylor Swift.
Shake it off is actually perfect.
Will anyone see red in this game?
That, I'm not sure. They didn't listen to our call.
Okay, listen to the Hurling Pod. Let's very quickly run through a couple of other stats then and the metrics around this game. Eddie Brennan was on earlier in the show talking about the amount of turnovers Galway had against Kilkenny in that match, and he couldn't quite believe it was up in 15-16, but that's a pattern for Kilkenny throughout the championship.
It is. Would you believe, even taking, say, Laois, Westmeath, Tipperary into account, Kilkenny have had the ball turned over on their own possession more than any team in the round-robin section in either Leinster or Munster. And sometimes, Nathan, I wonder if Eddie feels the same about this, because obviously they were under pressure when they were in Galway. Sometimes when this Kilkenny team come under pressure, they tend to revert back to type, because I think over the last couple of years they have been trying to mix their game up and trying to work the ball through the lines and play a lot more short passing. But in 2 games in particular, the game against Galway and Salt Hill and the game against Wexford, which they lost at Nolan Park in the last round, they reverted back to type by putting in a lot of long ball. Now, sometimes when Kilkenny go direct, it can work out quite well if it's against the right defence or if the ball is on at that time. So against Dublin, they were able to launch ball in from deep and they won quite a few possessions. It did not work whatsoever against Wexford, though. 16 times they launched the ball from inside their own 45. They only took possession up the far end on 5 occasions, which is a terrible retention rate. Now, Galway like to defend reasonably deep, and they've got a very physical back six. So if Kilkenny start doing that at Croke Park, I think Galway will be more than happy to just step back a couple of yards and to back their players to win the high ball that comes in. Kilkenny will be much better served to try and add a little bit of variety to their attack. And there's no doubt that Brian Cody has been trying to evolve. Like the Tipperary game, particularly at Temple Stadium this year, Kilkenny played shorter than I think any of us were expecting them to do. Now, they went on to lose that game, but there was a feeling that they were starting to just kind of move along with some of the possession teams. My worry for Kilkenny would be that when they take on particularly a really good possession side like Clare or Limerick or even Galway this weekend, who are very good at protecting the ball within their own half, Kilkenny may very well struggle if they're giving the ball away softly. Galway and Limerick are the two teams who've given away the least amount of turnovers inside their own 45. They are very good, particularly off their own puck out, in defending the ball. And Kilkenny will have to try and put pressure on Galway at that end, but also not give them easy ball back that they can just walk up the other end of the field. The other teams who are in the final on the other side in Munster are actually excellent at protecting the ball. I was taking a look at some of the puck out stats which were up on the GA analysis page, and Clare, just looking at Waterford game alone, where they ran riot admittedly, but where Clare put a lot of variety into their puck out, Nathan. They took 27 puck outs in all. They won 85% of them, and they scored 1-9 from those puckouts. So if you're taking 27 puckouts and 18 of them ultimately result in you having a shot at goal, that shows that you're excellent at progressing the ball. It's not just about winning your own possession, because sometimes we kind of get obsessed with the idea of where does the pass go from the goalkeeper to the next ball? Did they win that? But ultimately what's probably more important is where the possessions end up going up the other end. And in Clare's case, the ball came out from their goalkeeper 27 times during the match. 18 of them resulted in shots and 1-9 was put in the scoreboard. And similarly, Limerick are so good at keeping the ball. Was looking back at just even their first game against Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They decided, Nathan, not to have any shots with their sidelines that day. And nearly every team now is a sideline taker who will have a go from midfield or inside midfield to try and go for a point. Limerick got 4 sideline balls in the opposition half against Cork in the first game of Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They took every single one of them short, and 3 scores came off the 4. They kept the 4 possessions. It almost kind of reminds me of when Guardiola's Barcelona used to get a corner kick, and they would always play to their strengths. Instead of putting the ball into the box, they just take it short and use it as another possession. That's almost what Limerick do. And in some ways, kind of Kilkenny feel a few years behind if they're just putting the ball into their forward line and hoping to win the ball. So that's one to watch out for on Saturday night, is will they have that little bit of variety to their attack if they're going to beat Galway.
Will O'Callaghan, great stuff as always. Never any chance of blank space when Will is on with us on Meaningful Metrics. I could be here all night with this. 1/3 of the Hurling Pod, and it is the perfect build up to the weekend with Paul Murphy and James Skehill. You can get it in all the usual places, Will?
You can indeed, yeah. It's subscribe to the Hurling Pod feed or the OTB GA feed. You'll find it there. It's on all your podcast platforms. 7 o'clock on Mondays. Looking forward to the review already. If Skehill and Murphy haven't fallen out, Skehill has already said he's going to boycott the pod if Galway lose this weekend. Such was his bullishness about Galway winning on Saturday. So I'm hoping it's not just myself and Murphy having a conversation if Galway win, because I think they will. The other one just to watch out for, Nathan, before I go, TJ Reid. I had a quick look earlier about the top scorers in Leinster finals, because I have a feeling TJ had done a few recently. Since 2014, TJ Reid and Joe Canning are the only top scorers in Leinster finals. TJ Reid's done it 6 times since 2014. So no Joe Canning, obviously, because he's been retired. So watch out for TJ Reid potentially being the top scorer in the Leinster final. He only needs 31 points. He probably won't do it this Saturday, but
only
he'll do it
needs
soon.
31 points.
Just the 31 if he's going to overtake Eddie Kerr as the top scorer in Leinster history. And also we're going to have a new top scorer in the championship, because the 2 top scorers currently are out. Donald Burke 59, Killian Doyle 58, which means watch out for Aaron Gillan, who's got 322 in 3 matches for Limerick, and also Tony Kelly, who's averaging 12 points a game for Clare. Watch out for who's going to be the top scorer in the championship this year as well.
Will O'Callaghan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan.
That is Meaningful Metrics on OTB Sports in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more.
Meaningful Metrics on Off the Ball.
In partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more.